Okay, in Pax Hispanica we have three play areas. First, the shared map, which depicts the Spanish Main subdivided into land and sea areas. Land zones contain three different location types. The squares represent tribal sites, which are initially inhabited by the indigenous, which are these white meeples. Tribal sites can be upgraded into missions with a Bible, like this, and then upgraded further into a cathedral of this. A cathedral converts indigenous into citizens, which are meeples of a player's colour. Circles represent colonies, which can have slave labour or employ citizens. The hexagons represent rebel sites. There are two different types of rebellion: tax rebellions with the red fists and slave rebellions on the other side of the discs, which are white. The second play area is your individual tableau. This shows your character and any special abilities. There's an area to store your money and your relics at the top. There's slots for up to 3 ships. Just note for now, the topmost ship is called your flagship. There's slots for 3 peerages, which are special cards that give additional abilities and help towards certain victory conditions. There is your sway, which tells you your hand limit and the maximum actions per card that you can make. And you'll see as you put out more colonies or more peerages, your sway will increase. And similarly, there's your reach, which is the number of cards drawn during a professional draw, which we'll come on to explain later. This increases as you put more Bibles out onto the map, or in some cases with some peerages. The final play area is the shared philosophy board, which tracks your profession, lists some of the victory conditions, and stores the card market. There are 4 professions to choose from: a colonist, a missionary, a royalist, and a buccaneer. One way to win the game is by reaching the end of one of these tracks and achieving the condition listed. For example, to achieve the abolition objective, you would need your meeple to be in the extreme position along the missionary track and achieve the objective listed under abolition, which is to have 1 peerage or relic and no slaves on the map. If you don't have a profession, you are callow, which is one of these 5 spaces in the middle. The colours on these show the player's starting positions. The mercantilism dice in the top right here sets the maximum sway and reach for all players, regardless of what you've achieved on your tableau. And the Royal Coffers are filled along the bottom here with gold exported from certain types of ships loyal to the crown. Filling all 9 is required to meet the royalty victory condition. We'll come back to talk about the cards. For now, the only thing to note on this board is that a missionary is the most righteous, a buccaneer is the least righteous, a royalist is the most loyal, and a colonist is the least loyal. This is important for determining player order, depending on whether we are in a period of peace or war. Coming back to the map, notice that there is a calendar running along the bottom, which keeps track of the round. Each round consists of 4 years, which then repeat. The parrot token keeps track of which year we are currently in, so advance this at the conclusion of each one. Any year that is black applies the special rule known as the omen written immediately above. The track beneath the calendar shows whether we are in a period of war, which is black, or peace, which is white. The first year in a round is a goods year, which is done just once for all players. First, rearrange the player order. In a war period, the most righteous player goes first, so the one furthest to the right on the philosophy board, and the least righteous goes last. During peace, the most loyal player goes first, so the one furthest to the bottom of the philosophy board, and the least loyal goes last. The previous player order is retained in the case of ties between 2 players. Player order is tracked here. Second is the cathedral refresh, where every empty cathedral receives a meeple matching its Bible's colour. And these, you'll remember, are called citizens. Third is labour acquisition. All colonies need labour or else they'll die off. In this stage, in player order, those colonies that don't have labour can either kidnap slave labour or employ citizens. Kidnap takes an indigenous from a square in the same land zone. Note, however, you could not do this if the land was in revolt. You also cannot kidnap from the wilderness, which are these light brown areas. If you kidnap an indigenous from a Bible site, return the Bible to the owner's tableau. Alternatively, employ takes a citizen from a cathedral in the same land zone. You must pay the owner of the citizen $1, and they cannot refuse. If it is your own citizen, take $1 from the bank instead. Next, any colony that is still without labour, because they couldn't kidnap or employ, is removed from the board, along with any treasure or fortress. We then add gold chests to every colony in a land that produces one of the two goods depicted on the calendar. But only those that don't already have a gold chest. If a gold chest was placed at a colony run with slave labour, so an indigenous white meeple, discard that meeple to the pool. Alternatively, if the gold chest was placed at a colony with a citizen, its owner gains $1 from the bank. The second year is an auction year, which takes us back to the philosophy board. In player order, choose to do one of 3 actions in an auction year. The first option is to initiate an auction. Choose one of the 4 decks that surround the philosophy board and announce whether the bid is for the top face-up card or a blind bid for the face-down card immediately below it. Each player then secretly chooses how many coins they wish to bid, and all reveal together. The highest bid wins the card. If the initiator won, the coins are paid to the bank. If another player won, the coins are paid to the initiator. Losers of the bid get their money back. The initiator wins all ties, or else can choose who wins if 2 other players are tied. If the topmost card was auctioned, we then refresh the market by revealing the card underneath it. But this doesn't happen if it was a blind bid. The second option in an auction year is a professional draw, which is only available if you have a profession, so you are on one of the non-callow tracks. In a professional draw, draw a number of cards equal to the sway on your tableau, or the mercantilism dice, whichever is the lower, including the topmost face-up card. The third and final option in an auction year is debauchery. If you are on a profession, you must then move your pawn to any one of the 5 callow spaces. You also take $1 from the bank and 3 haven cards. Haven cards are the 5th deck and are located in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. The third year out of 4 is a play year, which is where we get to use those cards we just bought in the previous year. Let's look at both the tableau and the philosophy boards for running through a play year. In player order, players reveal 1 by 1 cards from their hand. First, if your card has a nudge symbol in the top right-hand corner, you must move your pawn on the philosophy board in that direction. So in this case, I have a ship nudge icon pointing to the left, so I'm going to move my token 1 square to the left. The only exception to this is if you are already at the most extreme end of a profession and you are nudged to be even more extreme. If the space is occupied by another player, then switch places. If you are nudged into mutiny, which is this side and this side, you must discard from your ships any that have a different nudge symbol to your flagship, which remember is the topmost ship on your tableau. So if this were my fleet, I have a royalist nudge as my flagship. If I was nudged into mutiny, I would have to discard any ships that did not match the royalist nudge. So this ship here in the middle would be discarded. If you are nudged into a midlife crisis, which are these sections here, you must move your pawn onto any empty callow space or pay $1 to stay where you are. Now you've done the nudge, you can perform any number of actions on the cards equal to your sway, or the mercantilism dice, whichever is the lower. Actions are depicted by the icons on the left-hand side of the card. Each one is explained on the game's Rosetta Stone. I won't go through all of them here, but just know that this is how you are going to be putting out colonies, Bibles, cathedrals, relics, stirring up revolts, messing with other players, etc., etc. Some actions, though, have an anchor symbol. When these specific actions are played, rather than the card being discarded, it is stored in either your ships or your peerage splay. A ship action with an anchor puts a ship into your fleet. First, put the card here and add a ship token to the map with your existing fleet, or to the pirating box if this is your first ship. Note that any time in the play year you can rearrange your ship cards, which is important for setting your flagship, which is the lowermost card. A peerage action is either a disc or a Bible with an anchor. You can only do this action if you meet the condition stated, such as the most loyal or the most righteous, relative to other players. Note that player order breaks ties. If you meet the condition, then add it to your peerage display, along with a disc or Bible as specified. These cards give you additional abilities and help you meet certain victory conditions. If you don't meet the condition, you can still play this card for its other actions and then just discard it once done. As well as market cards, you can also play haven card actions, provided that you are callow. These include marriage, to move to an empty marriage slot on a professional track marked with the engagement ring symbol. Finally, in the play years, you must reduce your hand size down to the lower of your sway or the mercantilism dice on the philosophy board. Market cards can be sold for $1 to the bank. Discarded haven cards are simply shuffled back into their deck. Whenever a market card is discarded, put it face up at the bottom of its deck. If a face up card is revealed in the deck, you'll know it's time to reshuffle. Back to the map, and we're on to the fourth and final year, the sail year. You should have exactly one ship token on the map for each ship card in your tableau, and your ships always stay together. If your ship starts in Europe, you only have one option: sailing to pirating and picking up a haven card. That then ends your sail year. If instead your ships start in pirating, which means they are already here in the Spanish Main, you have some options. You could choose just to draw a haven card and end your turn. Or you could choose to move your entire fleet to any sea zone on the map. Once on the map, you can move freely from any sea zone to any adjacent sea zone to load or unload treasures or people, or attack sites. Notice these currents, these arrows. You don't have to follow the arrows, but you may never sail against the currents. There is no limit to the number of sea zones you can move into. The first thing you can do with your ship is load people, either indigenous or citizens. Any empty ship can load people, but it must unload them at any empty colony before the end of its sail year. Indigenous are loaded by enslaving, which means winning a land battle against a tribal site or a visitor. I'll explain land battles shortly. Alternatively, meeples of your colour can be emigrated from one of your cathedrals. In both cases, it's one meeple per ship at a time. Unload meeples at empty colonies. For each unloaded citizen, receive $1 from the colony owner, or if it's your own colony, pay $1 to the bank. This does not apply to the indigenous white meeples. You can also load gold chests or relics into your ships. There is space for one gold chest on each ship, but there is no limit to the number of relics. Loading treasure, though, depends on the legality of your flagship. There are 4 legalities: smuggler, plunder, conquistador, and privateer. Any legality can load treasure in a friendly port, which is a colony of your own colour without a slave or tax rebel in the land's hexagon space. The exception is Spain, player purple, which cannot use a plunder ship in this way. Plunder ships initiate land battles to steal treasure. Smugglers pay $1 to load treasure, and the owner must accept. Conquistadors can freely load treasure at any purple colony, otherwise it initiates a land battle. And finally, privateers load freely from any colony in peace, but must win a land battle in war. The Rosetta Stone summarises what each ship legality is able to do. Okay, let's talk about land battles, which is how your ships can enslave or steal treasure. Your fleet can initiate a land battle against any single land site adjacent to your sea zone. And remember, there are 3 types: the square tribal sites or missions, the colonies, and the rebels sites. Each sail year you can fight a number of land battles equal to the number of ships in your fleet. So in this case I could fight 2 land battles this sail year. Once again, the legality of your flagship will determine what you can attack. All types of ship can enslave, but remember there must be an empty colony on which the meeple can be delivered. For everything else, smugglers cannot attack, conquistadors cannot attack the purple Spanish player, the privateer can only attack during war, and the plunder can always attack. Again, the Rosetta Stone summarises this information. The defending player may here negotiate for the attack not to take place, usually with bribery. Otherwise, battles are simply a comparison of strengths. Each ship has a strength of 1, and each colony and citizen in the same land zone as the target has a strength of 1. A fortified colony, which is one like this, that is attacked directly has a strength of 2. Indigenous white-coloured meeples and any meeples on board ships don't participate, so have a strength of 0. Cathedrals also have a strength of 0. Pieces of another player can decide whether to support the defender or the attacker, and reveal this using the battle cards. A rebel token also has a strength of 1 and will support the attacker, unless it is being attacked, in which case it is on the defence. Simply add up the strength of both sides and the strongest side wins, with the attacker winning any ties. In this example here, I've got 2 ships, a colony and a citizen, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, attacking this site, which is only 1. Remember, the indigenous counts as 0. If the attacker wins the battle, she or he steals the treasure, if their fleet can carry it, and sacks the site, which means removing the colony or Bible back to the owner's tableau. Fortified colonies have some protection. You only remove the fort and the meeple remains. Cathedrals are also removed to the supply. Citizens are returned to the owner's supply. Place a tax rebel, which remember is the hexagon on the red side, in this land zone unless the owner agrees to pay $1. For any indigenous meeples on the losing side, the attacker chooses to move them either to the nearest tribal site, so here or here, or colony in the same land zone. Take them on board a ship for transportation to another colony, or else remove them to place a slave rebellion token in the land's rebel site. If instead the defender wins the battle, the attacker loses a ship from the map and their flagship from their tableau. If the ship was loaded with treasure, it is lost to sea. If a meeple is lost to sea with a sunk ship, place a slave rebel for an indigenous or a tax rebel for a citizen. Loaded treasure must either be transported to Europe or deposited at an island as buried treasure. Suitable island for gold stashing are these with the small circle. Just remember that to retrieve the gold later, you will need to play a treasure map, which is a haven card matching the sea zone. Your sail around the Caribbean may be interrupted by an act of piracy from another player. To do so, they must be in pirating and not all the way over in Europe, and they must play a haven card matching the sea zone that your ship either starts, enters, or exits. The haven card is shuffled back into the haven deck, and the defender is given an option. Either surrender, which means the pirates take over your treasure and you return to pirating, ending your sail year, or face a sea battle. If you decide to take the pirates on in a sea battle, place the pirate fleet into the same sea zone. Note that land-based tokens can never participate in a sea battle. The 2 opposing players secretly choose their tactics for the battle using the battle cards. There are 4 options. surrender, flee, boarding, and seize the weather gauge. This is then a game of rock, paper, scissors. If the defender surrenders, the pirate seizes the cargo and may sink any plunder ships in their fleet. If the defender tries to flee, this succeeds if the pirate plays boarding, but fails if the pirates plays seize the weather gauge. The pirates take the gold and sinks the flagship. Alternatively, if you're attacked, you can stay and fight. If both players play the same tactic, then the fleet with the greater number of ships wins. In this case, the orange player has 2 ships, the red player has 1 ship, so clearly the orange player would win. If one player plays boarding and the other plays seize the weather gauge, then the player with the highest flagship letter, so that closest to A, would win. Let's imagine that in this situation, the orange player had a G, the red player had a Q. In this case, the orange player would win because G is closer to A in the alphabet than Q. In these cases, again, the winner sinks the flagship of the opponent. Victorious pirates steal the gold. All of this is summarised on the battle cards themselves. Pirates that gain treasure outside of their own sail year must then attempt to sail the load to Europe, while the defender ends their sail year in pirating, if they have any ships left. If instead the phasing fleet wins, they simply continue their sail year. Any gold that cannot be seized due to lack of space is discarded as lost at sea. Any meeples aboard sunken ships are returned to supply and create either a tax rebel for citizens and a slave rebel in the case of indigenous. If you manage to take the gold safely back to Europe, what happens to that gold depends on your flagship legality. Plunder and smugglers discard the gold and receive $4 per piece. Conquistadors and privateers place the gold in the Royal Coffers on the philosophy board and receive $2 per piece. They may also increase or decrease the mercantilism dice by 1, which you will recall sets the maximum number of sway and reach for all players. Your relics can either be sold for $8 or else go to your coffers. These are useful for meeting some of the victory conditions. You can choose to end your sail year either when you get back to Europe or when your fleets are empty of cargo. In this latter case, you remain in pirating for the next sail year because you are still in the Caribbean. We've now explained all 4 of the years in a turn. Play continues into the next good year unless the sail year contains the dove token, which indicates the game ends. If the game ends in this way, the player with the most Bibles, citizens and colonies of its colour on the map in non-wilderness lands without revolts is the winner. In this example, this colony and this citizen would not count towards player red's final score because the land is in rebellion. Similarly, because this land is in rebellion, this citizen and this colony would not count either. This Bible, however, would, as would this citizen here. Ties are broken by the most money, and relics, remember, are worth $8. Alternatively, the game may end sooner if a player reaches the end of a professional track and meets its victory condition. Thanks for watching and happy pirating!